I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. But back then, no one had a pot to piss in because everybody wanted to work in film. They could get away with paying us peanuts. Whether I wanted to be a starving artist, and look at me, Shopware, do I look like I can be a starving artist? Not for the things I want. I was working for, not really, I mean, they weren't terrible, they just weren't good company towards their people. And I thought, well, it'd be really nice to be able to work in like HR and work around people and work with people and see how I can make people's working lives a little bit easier. I found this, even till this moment, of all the things and all the anti-blackness, all the racism, the microaggressions, this particular moment still is my number one moment that really punched me in the gut.
Don't confuse getting noticed with being seen. It's a quote I heard a very long time ago, and it's quite appropriate for today's podcast as I unpack an experience that changed the trajectory of my guest life. Welcome to Everyday Leadership. In today's podcast, we are going to have some fun, but we're going to be laughing for sure. But we're going to learn, we're going to get candid, we're going to get real with someone who is an amazing person. This is a podcast that's been a long time coming. My guest is someone who is very humble, in fact, too humble. She doesn't speak enough about her accolades and her successes in the different organizations that she works with. And that's even one of the reasons why I wanted to bring her on, to really talk her truth, talk about her successes, but also talk about some of the experiences that have led her to where she's got to right now. She did amazing work in the corporate space. She does amazing work as a founder in her own business. Let's just sit back, relax, listen, and learn. And we'll ask my guest to introduce herself.
Oh, I like talking about myself. Hello.
That's what we're going to do that way.
Hi, everyone. I'm like, oh my, where do I even start? I'm not even ready. Like, what? Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Abi Adamson. I am a global diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. Work with many different companies before, such as your Googles, your Spotify's, your Sony Music. And yeah, no, I really love doing his work. It does have its testing moments. But I'm all about organizational, transformational change, equitable changes, and making sure that everybody can thrive in the workplace, no matter where they are, what they look like, where they're from, and just making sure that everybody is set up for success. Simple, you know.
I always very curious to learn how people have got to where they've got to and doing what they're doing right now. So if I was to peel it back and let's go back to a younger Abby, let's say 10-year-old. What were you like at 10?
I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. I was just,
What?
Yeah. So my first degree is actually in film. So I have a film degree. So, I was just, 10-year-old Abby, you'd find me watching a movie and analyzing it. I was very much into my films growing up. I was films and roller skating were the only two things. I used to have a BMX. I used to be a BMXer. So roller skating, BMX bikes, and movies are my thing at 10 years old. That was me. Very much a tomboy. Practicing wheelies around Shepherd's Bush. That's what I was doing at 10. But yeah.
What was your favourite film with that?
My favourite film? I always thought you can't ask a film person what their favourite film is because there's so much. But there's so. But at that time, probably at 10, it was a film. It's a film called Cinema Paradiso. That's a film that I really liked.
Was there a film in particular? Was there something in particular that got you into liking movies so much and analyzing them?
Yeah, I think it was a Robert De Niro film. I want to say it was. Well, I really loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was the film that I probably one of the first films I knew every single word to that movie. I loved Bob Hoskins. I loved Christopher Lloyd in that film. I thought it was hilarious. A rabbit being framed for murder. I thought it was hilarious. I thought that Beverly Hill, anything with Eddie Murphy, the 80s Eddie Murphy was just, that was me. That was me. Anything from Trading Places to Beverly Hills Cop to obviously Coming to America. So anything with Eddie Murphy, and then my other film that I knew every single word of was Twins, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
Oh man, I remember that.
Yeah, so those are actually Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Coming to America, and Twins all came out in 1988. All those three films, and those are my films. Those films I just knew of. Like by the time I was 4, I could recite those films. I could recite them offhand. But the film that made me love cinema, made me think, oh my God, this is fantastic, was Cinema in Paradiso, which is an Italian film. But yeah, so yeah, that's 10-year-old Abby.
So you're under analyzing films, you're into that. Obviously, you've carried that all the way throughout to uni. How come you didn't fully go into that and go into like film producing and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I almost did a film producing masters at Royal Holloway, and when at that time I was working for interning, and I did some stuff at the Beeb at Pinewood Studios, and one of the production houses, which they will remain nameless because they were useless, and they honestly absolutely useless. The most useless of all organizations. When I first started, my career after I graduated, and in order to be completely brutally honest, I'm sure I don't know how much times have changed now, but back then, no one had a pot to piss in because everybody wanted to work in film. They thought they could get away with paying us peanuts, and be working really long hours, going on sets, going back and forth. And of course, when you're a runner, when you're an intern, you're everybody's lackey, basically. So you're just happy to be there. You're just happy to be around all this magic that you realize it's quite exploitative, and you don't realize that it's quite exploitative. So it's only when I was getting older, I got to about 25 and I thought, hold on a second. Why do I still have just £10 in my account, please? What is going on? And why am I out here? You know what I mean? Why am I here working 12 hours and I come home with 50 quid at the end of the month? Because what is this all about? And so I just, I just had to think about whether I wanted to be a starving artist and come and, look at me. Sope, a fine girl, no pimple. Do I look like I can be a starving artist? Not for the things I want. Right? No. That one is not my portion. I cannot be starving, So I just thought I need to rethink my career. As much as I loved working in film, it was just not feasible, not financially feasible. It was just not for what you were getting back. And I hope things have changed in the industry. I know they still pay people quite rubbish, but I hope things are getting better. But back then, it was just ridiculous. So that's why I didn't stay in film, because I never had any money.
Honestly, that's wisdom though, because I know far too many starving artists who hold on to that mantra around that. I'm like, my friend, but you're not happy. You can't pay your bills every month. Is like an absolute nightmare.
Right, and that's the thing. You've got made a really good point, because I probably would have stuck it out if I were happy. But I'm like, I'm hungry and I'm not happy. What's going on here? And I'm working on it, because if I was hungry and happy, then maybe I would have been like, well, at the end of the day, one of life's biggest goals is to be happy. I've done that. But nah, I was hungry and unhappy, so I needed to make changes and fast.
Were you one of those people who subscribed to, I think the book was called Starving Artist, wasn't it? Is it Alexandra?
No, I didn't. No, I don't know about it. No.
Yeah, there's a book that a lot of creatives basically had as their Bible. And it was this guy from way back in the day, and he talked about being a starving artist, and a lot of people subscribe to the whole notion of how you're supposed to live very, very minimalist without anything, and you go through this journey. And I read it, and I was like, my friend, this is ridiculous. Like, you can't You can't live.
Too ridiculous. Too ridiculous. So, so fast forward a few years, and then about this time, 10 years ago, I was thinking, right, I want to do something around people. I was working for they weren't terrible. They just weren't good company towards their people. And I thought, well, it'd be really nice to be able to work in like HR and work around people, work with people, and see how I can make people's working lives a little bit easier. So I went off to do my CIPD, went to work for an organization, and I worked there for quite a few years and, worked my way up through the ranks, and then started doing talent acquisition. I was helping with hiring. I thought, well, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at hiring, and hiring equitably, because there were just some practices that the organization had in place that were very, very biased and incredibly loaded, and just the next type of level of elitism. I was like, what is going on? I remember saying to the CEO, this isn't the way to hire people into the organization. And I remember that the CEO was a man, sorry. He was, he was very surprised when I was telling him some things that he wasn't doing right in the organization. And I said, look, why don't you let me do the hiring for the organization. I think that there are I think there are some very problematic parts of this recruiting process. So let me take it at the helm and let me do it. And honestly, I just started writing think pieces about how to diversify organizations. This was just me just writing think pieces on how to diversify organizations and how to how to get more women in your team, how to make sure you don't overlook people from other certain socioeconomic backgrounds and things like that. And the organization started changing. At one point, I remember looking out, we had an open plan office. At one point, I remember looking out at the office, and 70% of the people in that room I had hired. 70.
Wow, that's that's an incredible stat. But when you initially spoke to the CEO about let me change our practices and all that kind of stuff, was he straight away open to it, or were there some like back and forth so you had to do to really get him to open his mind and recognize that change needs to happen?
I remember saying to him, you can't, if I hear that obviously I was very respectful. The man did hold my salary in the palm of his hands. But I remember saying, I need you to kind of stop telling me that you're into diversity and inclusion. It's just driving me a bit nuts. And he was like, why? I said, because every single intern that we have had come to this organization has been from your children's private school. Every single intern that we have had since I have joined this company has come from a school that costs 40 grand a year. You've got 2 children in that school, so that's 80 grand a year. These are children of MPs. These are children of psychiatrists, children of doctors, children of business owners, children of grandchildren of judges, of very, very powerful, influential, hedge funders. I promise you, I remember saying to the CEO, I promise you, all of them will land on their feet because society has made it so, because they're all very well connected. So how about you stop telling me you're into diversity and inclusion and let me take it at the helm so that we can have different people? Because right now, if I see one more intern from that private school, I think I will scream. What can you say to that, really? Because I had the receipts.
But then coming into that environment and starting to change the landscape to that 70% number that you did, I'm sure that also taken some convincing on your part, because you're asking people to come into environments which sounds like very predominantly white, middle class, upper class. So in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 hires come into the environment, they'll be like, "Ooh, why should I come here? Why should I come an intern here into that culture?"
Yeah, I don't know. I think people trusted my word, that I was there to make changes. And I remember saying that I at the risk of sounding arrogant, I can go and find another job. It's not, I don't need to be here. Look, I've got a lot going on in my noggin. I am gold dust to an organization. I can go. It really is as simple as that. And fortunately for me and them, because I actually did like the company, they did listen to me. And I think there was something I was always very honest. I was very transparent with candidates and about what my vision was for that organization in regards to the demographic and how I wanted it to look like. The frustrations that I mean, the reason why I left that organization in the end was because I realized that, okay, I'll just say the story. Sorry. So I was hiring for the organization, and we were hiring for our New York office. And so my direct manager, I hired my manager. Yeah. So my CEO, when we were hiring for the New York office, decides to send my manager to interview the people out there rather than me. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because it made me realize that no matter how hard I work for organizations that are led by people who don't look like me, I found this, even till this moment, this of all the things that, and all the anti-blackness, all the racism, the microaggressions, of all those things that have happened to me in my career, that this particular moment still is my number one moment that really punched me in the gut. Because I thought, I look at all the people I've hired for you. Look at the fact that I wanted to, so they were hiring for an MD in the UK office. It was down to 2 people. I wanted to go with this other MD, this other candidate who I thought was fantastic, blah, 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 blah. The acting MD overrode my choice and went for the other person. The other person that they went for lasted, I think, 6 weeks in the company. I get an email saying, "We should have listened to you, Abby. We really messed up." I didn't even reply back to that email. I didn't even reply back.
Wow.
And I realized that there's only so much power that we are afforded. And that was the biggest insult to, and I think, it was in the grand scheme of things. I know even I was speaking to some of my friends, they were like, "So you've had so much worse things happen to you. Why is it this particular moment is the moment that still pisses you off when you think about it?" I said, "Because you remember, I worked my arse off for 3 solid years. I worked my bum off in ways that, to make sure this organization was reflective of society, was reflective of different backgrounds, reflective of different people." And when, thinking this was going to be a career high for me to be able to go and hire for the New York office, you send my manager, who I hired into the business. And I remember, because I must have been fuming around the office, because I think nobody was, I'm quite chatty. So as my mum always says, I'm dangerous when I'm quiet. She said, that's when you're the most dangerous, is when nobody can hear from you. And I did not say a single damn thing to anyone for about 4 days in the whole office. People were, "Abs, you coming for lunch? Abs, you okay?" So he said, "Abs, let's go for breakfast." And so obviously he knows why I'm pissed. So he takes me for breakfast, and I remember what he said. And you think, you just came out here to just dig a hole for yourself, thinking he was going to apologize for overlooking me after I'd hired 70% of his workforce and overlooking me and sending my manager to New York. He comes out with, "Oh, Abby, the reason why I sent X person is because you would not have been able to get that person over the line." 2 weeks later, I swear to you, that's what he said. 2 weeks later, I handed him my notice.
What was your response? Did you respond at all, or did you were like, at that point, you're like, "Nah, this guy's taking the piss"?
I just carried on eating my my breakfast. I carried on eating my breakfast. The way I was stabbing at those mushrooms, but I didn't say a single thing because, but because I also know that throughout my career, even when I'm in the right, which is more often than not happens, even when I'm in the right, when moments like that happen and I react, I then become the aggressor. I then become the angry black woman. I then start feeding into these stereotypes. So I thought, nah, you're not getting that rise out of me, not today. No, I remember I was stabbing at my mushrooms. I don't even like mushrooms. So I was stabbing at my mushrooms and I was like, okay, cool. And he was just, you know those moments when people talk, but their words just go right past your ears. I remember he was just talking and talking and talking, and I did not say a single word. I was just nodding, and I said, thank you. He paid for breakfast, so thank you, and we went back to the office. I didn't say a single word to him.
But then wouldn't you then say that he, maybe not in that moment in time, like you said, because you were already riled up and you didn't want him to see that. But would you then prefer to say that there's an opportunity missed to let him know this is what you lost because of your trippy way of thinking, and actually sharing that with him when things had kind of calmed down, or you just felt like, you know what, I'm never going to say anything else, I'm just going to bounce?
Shopper, I wasn't born to be people's saviors. I think I've done enough of that. You know, I'm. Why should I have to save him again and again and again and again? So it's like, and that's why I was like, why am I giving you golden nuggets? What are you going to do with it? You're sitting at the peak of privilege and power. What me giving you that knowledge? What does it do for where you are? What does it do for him? Which is why when the Black Lives Matter movement went, and I saw some of the posts that the company put up, I just thought, my first thing was to cuss in Yoruba. First thing, because that's the first thing I normally do. So I always start cussing in Yoruba. He was all over my posts because some of them were indirects to him.
Yeah.
As I said, actually, this particular, I've met some wonderful people, and I actually really like the company. I really, really like the company. I think that's another reason why it pained me, because I actually genuinely like the company and I like the people because I had hired them. I like the people. But number one, there was no other place for me to grow there anyway. I hit the ceiling, and I, been there for 3.5 years. There was nothing else I could possibly do for the organization. But it was just one of those moments where you're just like, it's okay. And as I said, it wasn't the two companies I joined after that company, especially the one I joined directly after, the worst company of my career, the worst company of my life, or my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish them upon them. Yeah. Worst company of my life, worst company of my career.
What's so bad about it?
Should we start with the racism? Or should we start with the sexism? Or should we start with the socio-economic digs? And I can't even, it's even on a Monday, I can't even talk about them. I can't even go in because it will ruin my week and I'll just be on fumes. But going back to, so as I said, that particular company wasn't the worst. I actually enjoyed working there. It was that moment of realizing that no matter how hard I work for this company, I will always be seen as someone less than, because you saw me as less than, and that's why you said my manager that I hired. Let's not forget I hired the manager that I hired. So you will sit me and have me interview MDs for the UK office, but you don't think I'm good enough to hire the MDs for the American office. My faith is the bedrock of everything I do and who I am. And I don't go to church necessarily because I don't believe in the church as an institution, but that's a conversation for another day. But my faith in God is unwavering. And honestly, I remember saying to God after that conversation at breakfast that we had, I remember being in the toilet in the building that we were, and I said to God, I need you to give me a 360 moment. I need you to remind me of this moment and fight for me the way you said you would, because I need this moment to have a full circle. I need to come back here when I'm up here, I remember this moment and do that for me, God. And of course, God's like, Ashe, he's already got me. Because I didn't understand why all those things happened.
I got you.
You know, I didn't understand why all those things happened. But, you know, when I look back at where I am now and the things that I'm doing now, and the clients that I'm with now, and, you know, when I went to New York, first time I went to, when I set up my own business, I went to New York to go and do some work for an American-based company. I remember sitting on the plane when I was laughing. I was laughing on the plane so much. I'm sure the people around me was thought, I'm sure these people were thinking, poor thing, bless her, it's her first time flying business class. She's just happy. Oh, look at her. Look at her, poor thing. She's just so happy to be in business class. But that's not why I was laughing. Yes, the surroundings are nice, but I was laughing because I was thinking about the time I asked God to fight for me, about me not being able to go to New York and having a client fly me out to come and do some work with them, having only just read my work on LinkedIn, not even having seen my work the way my old MD had, my old CEO had seen my work. This other organization just trusted my word that I could deliver for them.
When I think about you describing that scenario, what comes back to me is you were not seen. Your work was felt, and the impact of your work was felt, but you were not actually seen, despite you physically being there.
Exactly.
And always trying to get people to really understand that how important it is for people to be seen. I think you just give a really great example of what that actually looks like and feels like for someone.
That was it. Sorry, me and my ring light. Sorry. Exactly that was it. I was not seen. And it took that happening for me to just be like, wow. Is this what it is? I wasn't seen. I was so invisible. It was just how nonchalantly he said to me, "Oh, Abby, you wouldn't have been able to get him over the line." Just without any duty of care, without any respect. It was, I thought to myself, is this who you're going to come and die for? And, you know, I had to call myself by my full Nigerian, my government name. I had to call myself I remember calling my full name in my head, saying, is this, look at this. Look at the way they've just shat all over your legacy that you've built here.
What's your full name?
Abidemi Oluwafunmilayo Adamson.
Yeah, that's powerful words.
Listen.
That's powerful words right there.
Listen. Don't even. The way I love my name here, don't even. My name is no joke. Trust. It is no joke. So when I say to me, and there's sometimes where I have to speak to myself and be like, Abidemi, are you okay? And that was, I remember saying that when I went into the toilet after that conversation, after that breakfast, and I remember saying to God, me, Abidemi, me, I need you to fight for me, God, let's go. Let me have a full circle moment. And when I got on that plane a few years ago to go to New York, I think I spent about an hour just laughing, just laughing. I'm sure even the air hostess was walking past and laughing with me because everyone just started laughing because I just couldn't stop laughing. Because it was so, the justice was poetic. And someone working in the organization sent me a message, I think after I had posted about the work I was doing with Spotify. And they said, oh, do you reckon would you do some work with X, Y, and Z? I said, do you think yesterday's price is today's price? I said, no, I'm good, thank you. Thank you, though. It's very sweet. I might not be able to get you over the line.
Was there any price they would have had that would made you actually want to work with them?
100 bajillion pounds. No, no. I just watched The Simpsons. No, not really, because for me it's not It wasn't about money.
It's about the money. Yeah, it was a principle.
They weren't paying me very well back then, but I really enjoyed my colleagues. I really liked them. They weren't even paying me very well, but sometimes, well, actually most times I've always chosen money over I've always chosen peace of mind over money. So it wasn't about, I wasn't being paid well anyway, so that was never the thing. I'm not even going to lie. I probably would have stayed a little bit longer, not forever, obviously. All good things must come to an end. But after 3.5 years, I probably would have stayed probably an extra year or so if that New York incident didn't happen, because that's how much I loved my colleagues. And that's how much I really loved the work I was doing. It was boring, but I did enjoy it, because good people are hard to find.
But then you went from that opportunity to two of the worst organizations you worked for to being out of work for 8 months. Now, when I think back to what you said right now, saying to yourself, God, fight for me.
No, how do you know I was out of work for 8 months?
My friend, come on now. If we're going to do this, we're going to do research. Like, come on. Which takes the ball.
I did know that sounds spooky because I don't really talk about it that often.
Anyway.
That is good research.
You went from that period to having nothing, like bad experience, and then nothing for 8 months. Were you feeling that at that point in time that God was fighting for you, or what?
Oh, that experience. If I didn't have my faith, I'm not even gonna lie, I think I would have. Okay, maybe let me not speak violence, but I had one foot on the ledge. Let's put it that way. But I did, because my thing is, there is no way that God would just allow me to just exist like this. And in that awful company, I remember I was there for 9 weeks. The one I joined after was 9 weeks, and I just thought, there is no way. There is no way. And I remember at the time, my dad, a few of my friends were like, you have enough for a lawsuit, like an easy lawsuit, just an easy one. You don't even have to do too much. And I mean, I thought about it for about a week, and I remember saying to a few of my friends that I actually don't really want to go down the legal route, because I just don't care about them. And my friend was like, but they did you dirty, all the racism that and I'm not talking about microaggression. I'm talking about outward racism, the macro stuff. But I chose not to go down the legal route because again, I really do believe, like, for me, peace of mind is really important, really important. And going through the legal route would mean that, we have weeks and months of hypertension and high blood pressure and migraines. And that no amount of payouts would really balance that out. So that's why I didn't go. That's why I just left them. I know that they're always looking over their shoulder because they know I have the receipts. I kept all my emails. I kept all of the Slack messages. I kept the text messages, recordings. I kept them. Not necessarily to ever use, but just, to keep them. To remind me that, there's no job is ever worth. I mean, I left that job without a job to go to. I left both the jobs, that one and the one after, without any jobs to go to. And then, of course, COVID hit, which resulted in, making it very difficult to find roles. But throughout all of those times, I was writing think pieces, and I was writing, my LinkedIn pieces and all of that. And that is how Spotify actually found me. So my life changed massively in 3 years through LinkedIn, and through the being featured in, a journalist picking up my words and putting it in the New York Times. So I had a lot of people being like, oh my gosh, is this you in the New York Times? And Spotify saying, is this your article? And not the New York Times, but another article was like, oh, is this your article? I said, yeah. And then that's honestly how it started to grow, and how my words started to reach really big companies and influential people.
Wow.
So for me, when those moments were happening where I was just, pouring my heart out on LinkedIn, that was God's redirection. I was looking back over the last 10 years, and because I say to when people say, "Oh, how long have you been doing inclusion work for?" I said 10 years, because I look back at all of the work that I did at that company where I was hiring. I look at the work that I was doing before, even before my HR stuff, and all of the every type of policy that I helped write, every type of think piece, every type of framework that I put together had diversity, equity, inclusion embedded into its DNA, embedded into the roots, even before it became like, oh, D&I is a thing, D&I, then way before the death of George Floyd. Because as I said to you before, I don't get to switch on and off my identity. And I look back to when I was working in film, and I remember working for that absolute nonsense production company. The amount of times that I would see people who look like me come for interviews and never get the role. And then I'd see the people that did get the job, and I'd go and look at the job description, and I'm looking at the person, looking at the job description, looking at the person, looking at the job description, thinking, this doesn't make any sense. And then I would hear, and then I'll speak to them, because I was working in admin when I was in film, and I'd speak to them and said, oh, so how did you? Oh yeah, no, I came for an interview. Then, well, my dad's president. My dad's friends with the president. Oh yeah, no, the head of legal. Yeah, that's my my godfather. So it started to make sense to me in the kitchen. But I used to speak to them like, okay, I get it. I thought, because ain't no way that black woman didn't get that job and you did. Ain't no way on this green earth. But now that I know that your godfather is the head of legal, and now that I know that your godfather is the president of the company, yeah, okay, makes sense. Even in the company that I was there for 3.5 years, I remember one of the people there was like, oh my God, I've just been working so hard. This is when I was new to the company and still figuring out who everyone was. Oh my gosh, oh God, I've worked so hard. And I said, oh, how did you? I interviewed, I worked to get there. I said, well, how did you get the role? She was like, oh, I just had an interview and blah, blah. I said, oh, okay, that's it. She was, yeah, didn't tell me anything. Someone else was like, what? Their dad is on the board. Their dad is an investor in the business. I was like, are you getting it? Like, yeah, but their dad is like, go and look at the investors. And then of course I went to go and look at it. And I said to them, I said, oh, when I asked you if you got the job, you seem to omit a very big part, which is your dad is an investor in the business. I was like, might as well just own it. It is what it is. Own it. We certainly didn't get it on merit.
What are your views on nepotism? It's
rife everywhere. My thing is, nepotism will happen. I'm gonna try and be devil's advocate with this, because of course, when I build an empire for myself and stuff like that, you would understand this as well, being Nigerian, that we Nigerians, we say that, we do better than our parents so that our children can do better than us. So if my child wants to get a leg up and I know the right people, why would I not use my resources to get them there? So that's where I'm going to play devil's advocate, because why the heck not? I say that to say this. Where nepotism is a problem for me is when people don't own up to it. What I would need my child to say is, my mum knows the CEO, or my mum and the CEO are friends. I'm not saying that my child isn't going to have to go through, or my future child, I'm speaking everything into existence, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, it's 2024, they put it out there now,
Listen, I'm putting it out into the universe. Exactly, like, right? So, or my future husband or whatever, yeah, my parents know X, Y, Z because they used to work together, or, I need them to be able, I'm not saying that they're not going to have like the education, the skills and all that. Yes, they would have that, but I need them also to be honest. And I think that's just where honest about their connections. And I think this is where nepotism upsets me, is that that person I was speaking to purposely omitted that she was given an internship because her dad is an investor.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because she's the best person to do the job. And I'd like to think that my future children are as not, I don't say that egotistical, but certainly they would have that, you know, they would have some kind of chest about them that they wouldn't even want to take that kind of take it off me or take it off their dad. Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, no, very much I want to do this myself, so that people can't turn around and say, actually, her mum's or his mum or her mum's Abi Adamson. That's why they got the job, you know? I'd like to think that they would want to make their own way and find their own way. And which I hope for them. Because I you know, this is the thing, is that I'm doing this work and I'm working as hard as I can so that my children don't have to go through some of the shit that I did. So, but nepotism it's going to be there. There's nothing we can do. I'm not going to be one of those parents that just watch my child struggle because I don't want to be accused of nepotism.
Yeah, you help them out.
That's why I said I'm being devil's advocate.
Yeah, and I get it. And that's, I think I'm very much aligned with you. I understand if you're in that position. If I was in that position, I'd definitely do it. But it's the ownership of it. It's like, actually, I am here because of X.
Exactly. Just own it. That's right. And I think there's this, I personally, I think this mindset is really butters. Like saying things like, oh, I struggle to get where I am, so you must struggle too. I think that's just so gross. I think it's gross when I see Black professionals, in particular, Black and brown professionals, projecting that kind of mindset, that kind of nonsense onto other Black professionals. You know, those Black people that have anti-Blackness themselves.
Yeah.
And they project that of, oh, well, look, you know what? Pull yourself up by your bootstrap. I managed to get here.
The gatekeepers.
Those disgusting gatekeepers that are actually worse than the dominant society. I got here, you know, working my butt off, so you can do this too. I got through. I just think it's so ugly. It's such an ugly thing to put out there. See, whereas my mentality is the ladder mentality of, yes, you know what? It was really difficult for me to get where I am. It was incredibly difficult for me to climb up this ladder, but I'm climbing. I'm going to pull the ladder down towards you. I'm going to put it towards you, and I'm going to help you climb up too. That's how I think.
I love that. I think, and that's, for me personally, that's how it should be, because it is always around. That's the evolution. That's the change. That's the structural shift that needs to happen, but it's not going to happen if you're not consistently pulling the ladder down for the people to come into those spaces and places. If not, the same thing that we currently have right now will keep on being perpetuated time and time and time and time again. And there's something that you said earlier on that really stood out to me, and I really wanted to emphasize. Despite every single thing that you went through, you remind me of when God said to Abraham, what you got in your hand? Because you kept on writing, you kept on talking, you kept on sharing, you kept on putting out your thoughts, your words, regardless of your experience at that point in time. And that was what led you to, like you said, the Spotify gig and everything else growing out from there. I think a lot of times when we go through hard times and dark times, it is very easy for us to go into a woe is me kind of mentality and mindset and just be down and out and be like, I've got nothing going for me. But you really exemplify why it's important to still utilize us and what we have inside of us and not let our environment completely take everything out of us. Because it will take some things, because it will be tough and challenging, but not everything out of us.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I mean, I won't lie to anyone listening to this. I did have a woe is me moment. You know, I did have like times where I was living with my friend Tolu at the time, and I remember Tolu was like, she'd be like, Abidemi, I need you to get out of bed. I need you to remember who you are. You know, I was like, Tolu, I can't, not today, go away. I'm watching that. I'm on this episode of Black Mirror. This is what my life is like right now. Tolu was like, get out of bed. What are you doing? This is you. Do you not have powerful your brain is? Have you not read your work? Get out of bed. Like Tolu would come in and she'd literally be like banging on my head in the room and be like, you need to remember who you are, Abida. You are Abi Adamson. You are Abi Adamson. You that hired 70% of the workforce. You that put someone's company margin up by 230%. You that single-handedly saved the whole company from almost self-destruction. You need to get out. Get out of bed. Enough of this woe is me. Right. So I had a week of self-pity. And then I was like, right, okay, I need to remember who I am. You know, I had my Mufasa roar. I had to roar it out. Yeah, honestly, it's like an episode of this remember who you are part of the Lion King. So I had to come back, remember that my roots, it's my roots run deep. So yeah, I had to shake it off and just be like, well, I can either play the cards that I'm dealt, or I can win someone else's cards and as in someone else's cards at the table and change this game around. So I decided to play strategically and use my powerful brain and use my words, and I can't remember which article or which LinkedIn post. I just remember, like, I don't know which one, but one that went viral. And I think I woke up one day and it was like 250 people had shared this piece. And for me, my defining moment on LinkedIn was when it was the 6th of June, 2020. And I had made a video on LinkedIn, an 8-minute video where I was just talking about how difficult the past few years had been for me, trying to navigate a workspace, being a Black woman. And I remember one of these horrible organizations, a white manager had come into I had an office that I shared with the head of, so I was head of talent acquisition, and I had a space that I shared with the head of people. And I remember the head of production came down from his office into my office, opened the door and came in. I was sitting down and he was standing over me. And he said, I don't really like the way you just called. You're so aggressive. I was sitting down and I was just staring at him. And he was standing over me, calling me aggressive. And I just remember thinking, okay. So when I did that video on LinkedIn and I was talking about how, on this topic, I could give you 101 different examples of some of the nonsense I've lived through in workplaces. But when I made that video and I was talking about how difficult it was being a Black woman, I posted it on LinkedIn, to be honest, honestly thinking that, and at that time I only had I say only because that's what it was, but I only had 2,000 connections on LinkedIn. So I thought out of 2,000 connections, 100 people will watch it. And you know what? That's 100 people that hopefully I've changed their mindset in some way, for the better. That was a Thursday I posted it. The Friday, I remember I woke up to my notifications on my iPhone, and then I woke up to about 350 notifications. And about, I don't know how many missed calls from my sister saying, have you seen your LinkedIn? Have you seen your LinkedIn? I said, my LinkedIn. She goes, go on your LinkedIn. Thinking that, as I said, 100 people were going to see it. I woke up and 20,000 people had viewed it. And my LinkedIn, my inbox was, I think I almost fainted when I saw all the messages. And also messages with job offers. With people saying, you don't even need to come and interview. I was like, no, I will interview, because I was out of a job at the time. I was like, no, I won't. And they were like, we don't even need you to interview. We've seen your credentials. We know what you can do. Come in and work with us. I had about 150 DMs, and out of 150, 25 were job offers off the back of that video. That video changed my life.
How did you feel? How did you feel the way you saw that?
I remember sitting with Tolu, and I said to Tolu, I was like, I don't know. I think back to that video changed my life overnight. It changed my life. And it's funny because Tolu said I should have. I remember I'm in an Ring. I was saying to Tolu, should I post a video? Or should I do it in Word? And she goes, well, she likes to read, and she said, I really like your words. I'm not really a video person. Let me just post the video. Because I think it'll be better in words. And I said, okay, you know what? Let me post the video, and if it doesn't, get the traction, then it is what it is, And she said, thank God you didn't listen to me. I remember she said to me, she goes, my nickname for her is Squidge, and her nickname for me is Chicken. And she goes, you know what, chick? Thank God you didn't listen to me, chicken. That video changed everything. And but you know what? With all of those job offers, I remember saying to Tolu is, I don't think I can go and work for one more bad company. I had 2 back-to-back. Okay, I left the other one because of the whole New York thing. Then I had 2 back-to-back. And I said, I think a third one will actually make me jump off a ledge. If I have one more company, if the next company I join, I am met with racism, and anti-blackness, I think that might be it. And honestly, I felt like God was speaking to me. God was just like, you don't need anyone. You can do this on your own. And then when Spotify called me, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do this.
Do you find it hard talking about your success and all your wins and your accomplishments and everything that you've done, not just in the last 3 years with your own company, but even prior to that?
I don't even talk about it, and I'm working with a coach now to help me because of imposter syndrome. Because I know it sounds ridiculous. The reason why I keep going back to this point of origin of this whole New York thing of my CEO sending my manager is because for me that particular moment changed a lot of things, and I was riding on this high of, oh my gosh, look at how wonderful, how I'm recruiting into the business. And remember, these people are staying in the business. It's not like I'm recruiting people that are just then leaving. They're staying and they're building a legacy. And so for me, to have the rug pulled from underneath, I don't think I'm doing fine. It's that I do have moments that when I do want to talk about, think about my wins or talk about my successes and how far I've come, I do think back to that moment of that's I was very, very comfortable and very relaxed, and I was very like, yes, I'm doing very well, and look at this, and then whoosh, that happened. So I try to make sure I make sure that I bask in humility as much as I can and keep it humble. Even a few of my friends said, we don't even know you're working with Sony Music. We don't even know you were working with. We didn't even know you were working with Google. We didn't know you were working with the London Wildlife Trust. We didn't know you were working with Lululemon or On the Beach. And they start listing all my clients, and like, because you don't talk about it on LinkedIn. You talk about anti-racism on LinkedIn, and you talk about this and that, but you never talk about all the wonderful work you're doing, and you never mention the clients' names. And I'm like, yeah, but should I? And they're like, Abby, you can humble brag. It's even I went to Seattle to do some work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation a few weeks back, and I was so worried about posting it on LinkedIn because I don't know. I'm working on learning to humble brag. I'm learning, and after all the things that have happened to me, negative things and challenging times in my career, I think it's just, I find it difficult to humble brag. But I'm hoping, that I learn to lean into that more, that celebratory thing.
In all you've done or you've achieved, whether it's in your company, other companies, what are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of, when I'm most proud, and this is truly the truth, truly the truth, is some of the emails that I have, or the DMs that I have received after doing work with an organization from, does more often than not happen to be women of color that will send me a message and say, because of your training, Abby, the microaggressions have lessened. Because of your training, we've changed our promotion process, and now it's been done in a more transparent and equitable way. Because of your training, the communication in this organization is so much better. That's what I'm most proud of. To know that people aren't being ushered, ostracized, alienated, segregated because of who they are and what they look like. To be able to have MDs, CEOs, CMOs, all the C's, send me messages and say, we didn't know that this was happening, but because of your focus group or because of your interviews, we were able to find these problems, and these are the solutions that we are putting forward to mitigate them. That for me is what I'm most proud of, to be able to be part of that organizational change, those transformations, those internal transformations. That's why I do this job. Lord knows I don't do it for the money. Yeah, if I can positively influence people not having to go through what I went through, that for me is a big win. I honestly, I look back at some of the things that I have gone through, and I truly, truly hope that I can, if I can influence it in any way that someone else doesn't go through that, then I've done all right.
And I think for me, it's always important to be able to have people who have been doing the work from day dot. Like you said, the receipts have been there. But more importantly, someone who not only has just been doing the work at this very theoretical kind of level, but someone who's been living it and embodying it in such a real and powerful way, like we just described today. And that, for me, those kind of people always bring a very different energy to the work, to the way that you show up. Because it is, to your point, I don't want people to go through what I've gone through. I know this, I understand this, I feel this viscerally. And therefore, when I'm coming to your environments, your organizations, I want to make sure that I can help shift the dial in a very positive and impactful way that's going to be leaving lasting change, not short-term impacting your bounce, but more long-term legacy, which is great to do. And the way that you do it in this very unashamed way. Like I'm saying right at the start, like you snatch people's edges online. Like you talk your talk. You call people out, whether it's organizations, whether it's celebrities, whatever it is, you are not afraid to use your voice. And I think it's important because there are other people who feel the way you do, but are scared to use their voice because they work for organizations where, like, if I say something, it's going to be viewed against me. And then people like you, and I'm sure you've got those DMs in the past saying, thanks for saying that. I couldn't say that publicly, but thanks for saying that. It needs people like you to be that voice, to be able to really help people feel seen, feel heard, and know that they're not alone, which I think is also really important as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I try.
And just as we are wrapping up, the last question to you will be, how do you define leadership?
I define leadership as being able to look inwards, being able to be self-reflective, being able to allow yourself to be vulnerable, being communicative in a way that's authentic, in a way that's transparent, and saying what you mean and meaning what you say.
So it was great when I asked you that question, and then you can look at the individual and how they show up and the work that they do, and be like, you can see the synergies. You can see that you saying that and how the work that you're doing and even the content and stuff that you write is just living and embodying that in such a great way. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for this conversation. It's been dope. Had so much fun, lessons, laughter,
Thank you. Thank
but
you.
real talk on there. So really appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Thank you.
This is Everyday Leadership. We'll see y'all next week.